Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 o'clock. It is time to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from February 14th, 2019. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at those. Any corrections or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Proper motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 2 on the agenda is the budget presentation for Building and Neighborhood Services and the CDBG Fund Grant. Building and Neighborhood Services. Alex, are you up?
We are up. Yes.
Okay, go.
Good afternoon.
Tom?
Thank you for the opportunity.
I got to push the button. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss our proposed budget with you. I'm Tom Marsh. I'm the interim director of the Building and Neighborhood Services Department. With me today, I have Alex Brown, who is our permitting operations supervisor, and Kathleen Sauceda, who is our housing development coordinator. As you know, the Building and Neighborhood Services Department supports the safety and quality of life for residents and visitors of the city of Franklin. We do this through plan review of construction documents, issuing permits, performing inspections, and of course the property maintenance violation and enforcement. And just a snapshot of what we accomplished in fiscal year 2018. We completed 1,300 plan reviews, actually over 1,300, performed over 25,000 inspections. We issued 6,800 permits and investigated over 1,200 complaints for zoning or various property maintenance issues. That's with a staff of, as you'll hear from a little bit later, we have budget positions for 36 personnel, but we were kind of perpetually slightly understaffed at 34 right now. The value of building and development in the fiscal year 2018 was $910 million, and our revenue for the department was a little over $2.8 million. What we are requesting in our budget for fiscal year 2020 is $3.4 million, and our anticipated revenue for the department will be $2.5 million. That's the general overview of what we do, and as Alex has done a lot of the legwork to put together our budget, he's going to talk to you a little bit about the specifics of personnel and operations and program enhancement requests. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us today. First, we'll go over the organizational chart. We've made one change to that. We've moved the Development Services Operations Analyst to report directly to the BNS Director. Everything else on the org chart will remain the same. Moving on to our base personnel request. Our request is $3,012,122 this year. We currently have 36 positions, 2 vacant building inspector position, inspector 2 positions. We will be hiring one building inspector 2 and 1 electrical inspector. We're also requesting on the personnel side creation of a part-time electrical inspector. We anticipate that Maurice Holland, who recently retired, to return in May of 19 and to come on board in a part-time capacity based on needs and workload. Also on the personnel side, we're requesting a reclassification of our technical support specialist 1 position to a technical support specialist 2 position. The money difference in that pay grade will be $4,003 even. The incumbent who currently fills that support specialist 1 position exceeds the requirements for the support specialist 2 position as it stands and as it's been presented to HR at this time. Moving on to our base operational budget. This year's base operational budget to start is $369,332. That is $303 higher than last year's approved base budget of $369,029, 0.1% higher. So that's we're proud of that number, being responsible in the money we're spending. We've moved some items around and to prepare for some more, bringing more training in-house, cut down on some travel costs to better serve our employees. Part of that money that we normally request as a program enhancement are the technology fee services monies. This year we have added those to our base budget. We anticipate that to be around $60,000 or a little higher, but we have added $60,000 to our base budget to get to that 332 number as our base request. Those technology fee monies go to enhancing our enterprise software system, computer hardware, and furniture for our one-stop operations center. Let's see, what else for the operational side of things? We are going to be requesting on a program enhancement request the replacement of 4 aging vehicles of our fleet of 21 vehicles. 3 of those are 12 years old, 1 is 17 years old, all with over 60,000 miles. They are increasingly becoming costly as far as maintenance costs, and the replacement of these with the Chevy Equinoxes, mid-size SUVs, at a great price of $22,500 each, would be very helpful to cut down on some long-term maintenance costs for our fleet. Yes.
Alex noted, good afternoon, everyone. Michael Walters Young, Budget Strategic Innovation Manager. Alex noted specifically in his presentation that the technology fee is part of the base budget. In the last several years, we had this as a program enhancement request. As we had initiated the fee a couple of years ago, we wanted to add that more as a highlight to see how the money would be used. Now that we've got a baseline figure of the money coming in and what it's used for in sort of regular sustainable function, we've decided to wrap that into their base budget.
Thank you, Michael. So that covers our operations expenses. We'll move on to our.
Alex, before
yes, sir.
you leave, on the 4 Equinoxes, do you need Equinoxes or you need pickup trucks?
Well, go ahead.
We found the Equinoxes work fine for
what you
the
use them
dollar
for?
value, for the fuel mileage that we get and so on. We have 2 large pickups. We have several pickups still in our fleet that we want to try to replace. And we've kind of, for operationally, we want to keep 2 full-size pickups for when they're needed. But generally for the day-to-day operation, the Equinoxes have been working great.
That technology income, that 60,000, is that based on 1 year? I see it's anticipated for 2019.
Yes, ma'am. We have our tech.
What did we get last time? Did we get 60?
Yes, ma'am. It's the technology fee is $10 per permit, so 6,500 permits, $65,000, and so on.
Yes, ma'am. Any further questions? Okay.
David Barker did give me a thumbs up on the Equinox, so fleet manager agrees with you. It's been a good option for us.
It's a great vehicle. We don't have any capital expenses requesting this year. We'll move on to our program enhancement requests. We've touched on some of these already. Our first is our biggest cost request, the 4 replacements, totaling $90,000, $22,500 each. The second is the reclassification of our job technical support specialist 1 to a technical support specialist 2, totaling $4,003, and the part-time electrical inspector position we would like to create at a cost of $24,352. And that covers our personnel and our operations and our program enhancement request for this year. Total enhancement request of $118,355, over and above our ask for our base operations budget and personnel.
Just to wrap up on the building and neighborhood services side, the workload generated by construction activity has actually dropped slightly in current fiscal year, but we're expecting it to stay steady or increase slightly in the coming year. So therefore, operationally, we don't anticipate any large changes needed for our budgets. As you can tell by the numbers, we're actually at a 0.5% increase or something like that. That being said, you've heard recently about the significant numbers of projects that are in the pipeline. We think we will be good for fiscal year 2020 with kind of holding steady state, and we'll see what the year holds for actually approvals. And what ends up getting through the approval process into actual construction on the ground. I'll transition quickly to, as you know, another portion of our department is the housing development program, and that's where the community development block grant program is a separate budget item within our department. I think you're used to that. We get about $250,000 a year each year for the last several years. Overall, the city has received approximately $2 million over the years through community development block grant. For current program year 2019, we actually received $318,000. And as you know, year by year, the various activities we fund with that are community-based development organizations. That's our partnerships with Community Housing Partnership and the Hard Bargain Association to construct new single-family homes at affordably priced for the area. We also have supported public facilities development. Any of our partners who are actually constructing public facilities, water, sewer lines, streets, sidewalks for an affordable housing development are eligible for those funds. So as you see in your program, we've expended $95,000 current program year with supporting the Housing Authority and some of their projects. And then the other main area is the repair and rehabilitation program. And just those continue year by year. Like I said, current year we've received $318,000. We anticipate $250,000 per year plus or minus, and we've broken out through those types of programs. And with that, we're done and we're open to other questions. Thank you.
So technology fees. In fiscal 15, we collected $44,000. In 2016, we collected almost $89,000. In 2017, we collected almost $81,000. And we've budgeted around $80,000 for both 18 and 19. So we're being conservative with our expense estimates versus what we've taken in since it was enacted mid-year or so 2015.
Tom, do you have any broad comments on the number of housing permits growth? Do you want to, let me get the green light on. Do you have any general statements that you'd like to, you know, we hear this, this, and this, and this.
Right. As I mentioned sometime in the last couple of weeks, you know, as you hear about all of the proposed developments coming through the pipeline, you know, whether it be 6 months or 9 months down the road, and sometimes maybe a little bit longer, we're going to see those in terms of the permits and then the inspections and and we like to keep our number of inspections per inspector per day at 10 to 12, and that's where we've been able to hold that with our staffing. And if we see an increase in that over the next 12 months, then we'll have something else to talk to you about in December or January of next year.
And one of the things, we hold ourselves to a pretty high response rate in terms of the turnaround for an inspection. We are providing inspections next day, same day in some situations. So that's a pretty high level of service. And so if more volume comes through the process, the question, as we posed to you a few years ago, is do we want to change the service expectation, or do we want to add personnel resources so that we can handle a higher number of inspections? So that'll be the same nature, I would think, of the discussion should some of the things we see in the pipeline hit us at the same time. So
Yes, sir. And thank you. You touched on something, if you'll let me brag
Sure.
for a minute, that the same day inspection service, using our online inspection scheduling, if a contractor requests an inspection up to, currently the cutoff is 5 o'clock in the morning, but if they go online in the morning and request an inspection prior to 5 a.m., when our staff typically comes in about 6:30 or so, if they get that request in, we will perform the inspection today. The cutoff for the phone service is noon the day before. But so.
How late is your typical inspector out in the field?
They're usually back in the field by 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, ma'am. So,
So you have capacity to do evening and afternoon time?
we could expand that, yes. I mean, right now, like I said, hitting the,
You have like a second shift, I'm just sort of being creative here.
certainly by it hitting the customer service aspect of the way we like to have the inspectors focus the time with the contractors they're working with, that 10 to 12 inspections per day in that time period. But sure, yeah, if we went into overtime or added more staff to work that second shift or so on.
Okay, just be creative there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're good for now.
Okay,
We might have a different story next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's go to item 3, the budget presentation for Water Management Fund. Michelle, you're up.
Just make sure your green light's on.
That's the only rule. Hi there, good afternoon. So I'm here to present the budget for our department, the Water Management Department. So we have, I think these are kind of the standards, so we'll go over the purpose and kind of how the department is structured, some of our base budget requests, and then our enhancements. So the purpose of our department is to enhance the quality of life for the City of Franklin residents through exceptional, responsive, and cost-effective services. That's through both our water distribution and treatment, and then our wastewater collection and treatment as well. We also provide reclaimed water, which is kind of a service that makes us unique in Middle Tennessee. So I know this is a little bit hard to see. So we have three kind of separate divisions. The water plant, which is the blue on the left-hand side. The wastewater plant is the green on the right-hand side. Our service division is kind of the bulk of the employees in our department, and then at the top are the top right there is kind of what's in our utility administration, which is myself and the assistant directors, our utility inspectors, and some more of our office personnel, our engineers and GIS technician specialist. So we're budgeted for 96 positions. We don't have all of those filled. We have some vacancies at the water plant and the wastewater plant right now. We do not have any personnel enhancement requests this year. So we'll do the fun stuff. Our revenues for that are projected for 2019 are you can see that 31.9 million. Our expenses that are projected for 2019 are 25.7 million. So for 2020, the budget for revenues is about 33.3, and then our expenses are 28.7. So that leaves us with an ending balance of 2019 for 31.7, and then projected for 2020 is 36.3.
It should be noted a couple of things. This is a unique presentation, shall we say, in terms of the budget. It presents a proprietary fund in really the cash basis of accounting that we use for the rest of the budgets that you see in front of you. So in order to get an apples-to-apples comparison, we have tried to present for you the operational costs and operational revenues. If you look in your CAFR, and I know Mike's sitting right behind me, if you look in your CAFR, you're not going to find ending fund balance numbers that tie to this screen. But we've used this presentation for the last several years in order to give you a better idea of sort of the inflows and outflows from an operational standpoint year over year. That's the first thing. The second, which is worthy of pointing out, is the available fund balance certainly has accumulated, knowing that we will be drawing it down in large part to fund the cash portion of the water reclamation facility in the future. The revenues assume the same rates that you proposed, the 2.9 in the water and the 3.5 in the sewer. So that's reflective. The increase beyond that is the use of fund balance for reclamation expenses. And I know, Eric, if you want to pick up any more from there.
Michael summarized that well. You do have a unusually large balance in this fund, but that is because we are anticipating drawing cash down. You are also going to have annual debt service at a little higher rate than the prior years as that ramps up. When you look at that, there's still additional financing to do on the water reclamation facility. We have the $100 million loan from the state revolving fund that's in place. That will carry us a long way into that project. We have cash that we've planned to use both from this fund balance and from the impact fee area. And then we will finance the balance either through additional dollars that will come from state revolving loan fund, which we're pursuing because of those very favorable loan terms. But if that doesn't happen, then we will issue revenue bonds to fill that final gap. And that I would expect happens later in the project, a year or two from now, somewhere in that time frame. So that is sort of an evolving opportunity that we know we need to figure out, but we also want to make sure that we get the best value, and we're in an enviable position where we have a big chunk of it, $100 million already secured with a great loan term, and then the balance that we can carry through with both combination cash and then being opportunistic on financing the final piece. So this is an unusual fund in that regard. So anything else to add there? Okay.
Well, what's the most we would probably pull from this fund, this enterprise fund? We need to keep it at a level of 5 million, 10 million?
Yeah, I think you'd look at somewhere around a quarter, 25% of the operating budget is a good guideline. So, obviously that's going to ramp up a little bit over time, but right now it's an operating budget around 28, 29 million. So somewhere in the 7, 8 million is a reasonable place to be. We might, we always try to be a little cautious on that. So we might say maybe 8 to 10 million is a good place to be. And we've planned generally to use around $20 million towards this project. Now that's cash from this fund, but also the impact fee will contribute some to the project as well.
When do you expect to draw that down? When will we start?
We'll be starting with the $100 million. We'll start drawing down the $100 million loan first, because there are the state wants us to use that loan program has some time deadlines on it. So they would like us to draw down the $100 million loan, and then we'll look to use our cash and then borrow at the additional funds at the tail end, depending upon whether those are state revolving fund. If it's state revolving fund, they may want us to borrow that second. But if it's bond market, public offering, we'd probably do that at the very tail end of the 3.5-year project.
And that really works perfect for us, because that gives us time to look at the best option for that last piece of financing, whether it's through the revolving loan fund or a revenue bond. We can sort of look at where the right opportunity is and play out the opportunity with what capacity might come available through the revolving loan fund. And they've encouraged us to pursue a second piece through them as well. So we're hopeful that could work out.
So we may be 2 or 3 years before we have to tap this.
Yeah, and that 2-3 years gives us an opportunity. Exactly.
And we've already applied. We've already put our name in the hat essentially with SRF to get additional funding for this year. So their priority list haven't come out yet, so I don't know if we're on that list or not, but we're certainly pursuing that option too.
The only expenses which are included in here are the interest carrying costs for the loan. So we have budgeted $500,000 for fiscal 2020, and kind of earmarked that increasing slightly as time goes on, but we don't begin repaying the principal until we've expended the proceeds of the loan.
I'll make one other highlight that's unique to this year. You see that line that talks about use of fund balance, that $6.9 million. We had an emergency repair of a large transmission line area, as you all know, 54-inch wastewater line. That repair has been complete, but that is the number we had to use in fiscal 18 to make those repairs. And so that's highlighted for you here as well, that when we used our cash balance to help fund that. And as you know, we're in the midst of some litigation right now to try to pursue some recovery of those costs.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point to point out, that we're in litigation to recover some of those costs in. But that repair was $7 billion to.
It was.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll note that the department took steps, though, to mitigate the impact on the fund. If you look at the operating capital net number, it's significantly lower than the actual in 2017 and the forecast for 2019 because funds had to be diverted towards this purpose instead.
Okay. So we'll move on. So this is kind of a listing of our capital projects that we anticipate undertaking in the next year. You can see kind of at the top, we have some on-call services where we anticipate kind of continuing to do the inspection services on the collection system and repairing any of those that we need to. So that's for a contractor to come in and do those point repairs or for anything that's larger than us to do. We also have some Holiday Court and Church Street are ones that we're working on that are kind of imminent, and so is Spencer Creek. We'll be coming to you, actually, I think to the board in a little bit to talk about South Prong, some kind of upgrades there. One of the things that we're really looking forward to doing is advanced metering infrastructure, which will help with our revenues for water and sewer, because that's what we bill both, sewer off of as well. So we're looking at starting that next year. And then we have some reclaimed water. This past year, we did the beginnings of a master plan to the reclaimed water system, and so we're going to look at kind of how we can implement some of those capital projects as well. Okay. So this year, like I discussed before, we don't have any personnel enhancements. All of ours are capital enhancements. So we have a utility service truck that is just a replacement of one of the existing vehicles in our fleet. It's over 10 years old and is just due. The assistant director vehicle is for Brian. He's managing quite a bit of the wastewater activities. The truck that he's currently driving now is going to be diverted to a no personnel that we have already been approved for. So he'll need a vehicle. And then we also have 2 dump trucks. So one in the service division, which will be built out of both water and water distribution and wastewater collection. And that's just for our typical service division service request responses. And then a biosolids dump truck. That's for use at the water reclamation facility, and that's for hauling solids to and from the landfill. But we also anticipated we'll be able to use that once we, finish our expansion and kind of get to our new stabilized process to dispose of it as well. Good. So in summary, budget provides for equipment and staffing to support ongoing programs and initiatives that continue to expand our proactive approach. It continues our renewal efforts that focuses on areas of the city with aging infrastructure and operational issues. We have program enhancements to ensure the staff we have and the equipment we have to perform our day-to-day functions to continue our level of service. And our revenues estimates show signs of growth consistent with the rate of planning efforts established in the city and then working through strategic projects developed through the IWRP. So I think that's it.
Any additional questions? If not, thank you, Michelle. We'll go to item 4, Streets Department, Maintenance, Fleet, and Traffic Division, and Street Aid.
So I will also add just one thing is that I did submit this for half an hour of your utility board member training. So
Good job. You've done a great job.
you guys are having an advantage over the
Thank you.
others.
Yeah, you're ahead. And Margaret, you count too.
Michelle, what are the total employees in the water department? Total? 60?
No, so we have a total of 96 budgeted
96.
employees.
That's water and wastewater both.
Okay.
Yeah, at both of the plants, everyone, yep.
So since we're still logging training time, I will note that your water rates are established for this year and next. We did a 2-year adoption on a new 5-year rate plan. So we've implemented that and we've brought that down to, it's 3.5% increase in sewer and 2.9 in water. So we've got that to a much more manageable level for the adjustments in rates, but you've already adopted rates for this year and the coming year. So we won't be revisiting that till next year at this time.
Streets Department. Steve, Joe, you're up.
So I can promise you, for for as little time as these folks have taken, I will take it all up with Mr. York.
Well, make sure you're on the green there then.
On the green.
You can always hear Steve.
Yeah, you probably don't need a mic with me, truth be known.
Good afternoon, committee. Since this will be the last time I will be before this committee to do a budget presentation, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for the number of years that you all have provided everything that we have needed in the street department, personnel, vehicle-wise, equipment-wise, and just want to thank you all for that. Michael, for your hard work, Eric, and the rest of the members of the board, just want to thank you all for everything. Christine, everything you all have done for us. And with that, Steve has volunteered to present the budget today, so I'm going to let him.
And actually, with that, does anybody want to cry? All right, so I kind of equate what you're getting today to the March Madness busted bracket. When you woke up this morning, you thought you were getting Joe York. Unfortunately, you're getting me. Okay, it's okay to laugh. All right, well, with that, we'll begin this presentation then. So indeed, Mr. York, Director of Streets, we currently maintain budgets in the Maintenance Division, Traffic Division, Fleet Maintenance Division, Stormwater Division, which is not on this particular screen, and the State Street Aid. Our outline will be very similar to many of the others, except much longer. So we are committed to serving selflessly alongside our brothers and sisters throughout the Public Works Department. We strive to maintain, improve, and preserve Franklin's infrastructure for its current residents and future generations. As we look at the current org chart, you'll notice that a couple of the proposals that we have is a crew chief, a reclassification inside of the Landscape Maintenance Division, and we are going to request an additional road inspector position. So if we can just flip forward to that proposed chart. So as we look at the staffing level for the maintenance division, you'll notice that we are at 39 current and proposed 40. That number is actually down a little bit in the 2020 proposed budget, and that is due mostly to medical premiums. As we look to the operations budget, you'll notice that we're down approximately $106,000, or about 7%. The heavy hitter in this area is actually our electric service, which is down approximately $64,000. And that is due mostly in part to some of the program enhancements that we've had over the last couple of years for projects of turning our non-incandescent street lights into LED throughout downtown, some of the high mast lighting out on the interstate. When we get to the traffic division budget, we're actually going to touch on that $64,000 again. So we'll point that back out when we get to that part of the budget. As we look through the rest of that operations budget, you'll notice that we're down about $12,000 in the water and sewer service. That is due to some of the irrigation upgrades that we have done in areas like Mac Hatcher, where we went to drip systems instead of the heads that actually shoot a lot of water wasted, unfortunately. So in those areas, we went to the underground drip systems. You actually can't even see the irrigation working. In the debt service, you'll notice that we're down 0 from 25 to 51, and that is for a lease program that we had entered into several years ago, and we will realize 0 debt service in the proposed 2020 budget. As we get into some of our program enhancements, and there are quite a few, as Michael would point out, approximately 10 of those, we are asking for several replacements when it comes to vehicles. We are requesting a single axle dump truck to the tune of $127,610. This is a replacement vehicle that, as you look at your enhancement, you're probably going to recognize it's probably low mileage. However, it has been utilized to perform our salting efforts. And we will take the picture that you all are seeing now to the right is actually a truck that we will take equipment off of. As far as the snow plow and the salt spreader, we're not budgeting for that. We're just budgeting for the actual truck itself. So during servicing and maintenance of that particular piece of equipment, fleet maintenance has found that the frame on that has been is deteriorating due to salt, if you would, for that type of application. You also notice that we're asking for $52,000 for a replacement landscape unit and $42,000 for an SUV, which is a replacement of a 2006 Nissan Titan. As we move toward the equipment program enhancements, you're going to see a little variation in that 259 to 474. The heavy hitter in this particular slide is the tractor and bush hog replacement of $137,000. We have spent about $60,000 on this piece of equipment, and it's about 12 to 15 years old, and we just need to cycle it out. It is due for some upgrades as well with the worn out equipment that's currently on it. One of the new items you're going to see in this slide is an asphalt hot box. This particular piece of equipment is capable of handling 4 tons of asphalt. It will be used in conjunction with our infrared truck. However, during inclement weather, it's difficult for us to store enough hot asphalt, if you would, when asphalt plants locally are shut down and/or in Nashville. So this particular trailer is capable of housing asphalt up to 48 hours or 2 days, and that'll help us supplement keeping asphalt for the infrared truck and continue to perform utility cuts and pothole repairs during inclement weather. The windrow turner is indeed a replacement request, and you're going to see that varies from $35,000 to $250,000. The high end of that mark is actually $500,000 for a new windrow turner as far as a self-propelled. In this scenario, that's not exactly what we're asking for. We are asking for a larger unit that would still be tractor drawn, if you would, or pulled. And this type of unit would actually continue to allow us to lay ample amount of leaves on the yard without having to move, having to look for real estate in Williamson County. In years past, we have not had much success with relocating that compost site, so we're just looking for ways to continue to improve it. The next request,
So Steve,
yes, sir.
What does that actually do?
I
know what Joe York and I would know what a windrow turner is.
Yes,
from years ago, but that's not the same thing.
So it's basically a piece of tractor-drawn equipment that it mixes the compost as it decays and introduces oxygen, brings it back to the top so that the oxygen will actually get into the material and then help the decaying of that material more
That's
rapidly.
a wide spread from 35 to 250,000.
From a pull-behind? From a pull-behind unit to a self-propelled unit, there's quite a bit of difference in the money. So this year we're going to request the pull-behind again. So.
And that's on the lower end. So the next request we would like to propose is an upgrade to the Public Works facility. It is indeed site design and grading, the $300,000 that we are proposing. To the left of that slide, but in the grassed area, the proposal is to move that current detention pond to the rear of the building envelope, or to the east toward the trail to our right, and to grade that area where the current pond is to allow us to expand the parking lot area in phase 1. And then as we get to the 3 to 5 year vision, do a phase 2 and 3 to add some buildings on that site. So we currently utilize 108 Southeast Parkway quite a bit still, even though we partially vacated that lot. Our stormwater division, a lot of our landscape and seasonal equipment actually is still housed at 108. We utilize both of the climate-controlled buildings for seasonal equipment, and we utilize the entire yard, including the storage bins, to house material.
So on the Southeast Parkway, is that the only thing that building is used for?
No, sir. So GraceWorks actually, I think, has a partnership with the city of Franklin and utilizes currently the office space. I think there may be some anticipation with the revamping of City Hall that perhaps some services may move out to that particular location.
So they would move out? Eric is busy.
I was trying to multitask. It didn't work so well.
That's reasonable I mentioned that. GraceWorks is in the building where the old streets department
Yes.
was now. If City Hall has to do something other, they'll move out. They understand that.
Yeah, that's
They're paying a lease now to use any of this space, or are they just in there for?
Yeah, we have a lease with them. It has a very short exit clause to it because we always knew that there might be some need. And so they're using the front part for the office space, and we're actually using the back of it pretty significantly to store equipment. So it's fully utilized, just different than it used to be when the streets department was there. But yeah, we have anticipated that, and from the beginning told GraceWorks that one of our thoughts around redevelopment of City Hall is that we might need to temporarily house some of our functions there while that happens. So that's been understood, and we've written the lease in such a way.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the maintenance for street department? If not, we'll move into our traffic division. So you'll see as we look toward the base budget for the personnel that our current staffing level is 10 full-time employees, and our request remains the same. As we look at the base budget, we'll recognize that we have a decrease of about 2% and or $14,959. I know looking at the slide, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you see a $10,000 increase and a $14,000 decrease. However, there's a few little items that move in and out under the rest of the budget to make up that $10,000. So the $14,000 decrease is actually due to property liability cost. And essentially those are recoverables, as you all know, from if somebody knocks down a light, we have a police record on it, and the city of Franklin goes after that money from an insurance standpoint. So as we look at the program enhancements, we actually have 4 requests in this particular budget. The most expensive, which is $150,000 traffic calming request, $143,000 for the elevated platform truck. And the platform truck, this is the second year that this has come before the committee, so I won't bore you with all the particulars of that. However, the $72,000 for the interstate lighting, which is indeed the LED project, when we mentioned earlier that we had a $64,000 decrease in our lighting bill alone, that, again, that is 100% relatable to all the efforts we've done in downtown and with the high mast lighting. We currently have about $12,000 worth of work we need to do in the area that needs some attention where these LED lights are proposed. So the current location of those street lights, for many of those, are up on the barrier rail, and it takes specialized equipment and certainly a lot of nerve to be in that travel lane or just off that travel lane. And what we propose to do is to upgrade those lights in those areas to the LED so that we don't have to revisit those locations often. And we actually would not perform that work. We'd still hire that out to perform that upgrade. We do have an estimate that is that $72,000. The $150,000 traffic calming budget, which we touched on just a little ago, that actually come out of the CIP meeting in conjunction with engineering and administrative folks. And that is a budget that is not currently in our forecast or line item specifically. However, it is definitely a figure that we need to try to make sure we have some availability. That typically comes from a development that is interested in getting some sort of speed humps or upgrading some striping, that sort of thing inside of development, signage as far as school zones and that type of stuff. So the anticipation is to be able to have some funds available where it's not absorbed in the traffic budget line item specific.
Since I am the one ward alderman up here, I guess I get all the traffic calls. Who is the new Carl Boffman now?
Adam Moser is our new traffic engineer. He started at the first of the year.
Okay.
Comes to us with a great deal of experience in Florida. Also has worked in this area on the consulting side, but he's doing a great job, very knowledgeable. And part of this budget is that we're seeing an uptick in requests around traffic calming. And actually one of the things we are able to purchase this year is some temporary speed humps that we can put in and allow people to try in a neighborhood and see if they really want it before we go and invest in building something. So we were able to find a way to get a couple of those in place. The Westfield neighborhood has requested some speed humps, and so we're actually going to put the temporaries in there first later this year, give them a chance to see what it is, what we're talking about, the spacing, and then gauge their support for a permanent solution. So we're just seeing more requests, and we want to have some more capacity to do it if it's approved in a neighborhood, but also using these temporary features to help give people a sense of how it would work before we jump all the way in.
Let me back up and be just a little bit the opposite of that. I think that we need to also understand that the streets don't necessarily belong to the neighborhood. They belong to the taxpayer. And for the number of people that go through those, and I don't know about the one specific request, we need to look at, I've never been a proponent of speed bumps. Only thing I think they do is knock out the front end of your vehicle. So therefore, when I saw the traffic calming budget, if it's striping, if it's additional signals, or it's different school zone signs or something other, but I'd be real careful, because what we did on the subdivision you're talking about was to cut. We specifically made that to cut through, and so yeah, I could understand, but I've always been pretty negative towards speed bumps, because I don't think they benefit anybody, and I think they do harm to 98% of the people who use the streets.
Mr. Chairman, I will disagree with that, because I think there's a lot of opportunities where those speed bumps will deter, because if you're going to injure your car because you're having a little extra speed, but that's just my personal opinion and some of the folks I've talked to in neighborhoods, and I have seen them make a difference coming down a stretch, and all of a sudden we put a temporary bump there in front of that lady's house that calls us all the time. Anyway, that deterred that speed. So there are opportunities where the speed bump will deter an individual from injuring their car.
There is not a time that it will deter an individual. It will not do a time that will deter the injury to the vehicle. It is an inconvenience, and if there's a speed limit there and they're speeding, I understand it. That's not necessarily the function of the speed bump, but I just, they're public streets.
Well, we'll continue to work with the engineering department and make sure that that's
And if there's someone that's specific that needs a speed bump, we'll look at that.
Yes, sir.
Maybe in their driveway.
We put plenty of those in as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I like the idea of the temporary, because then people can see what it's going to be like. And sometimes when you think that you want one, you might find that the temporary idea was probably a good tryout.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the traffic division? All righty, with that, we're going to move into the street fleet division. So as we look at the personnel requests for the street fleet, you'll notice it's basically unchanged. We are currently carrying 10 full-time employees into that staffing level, and our request is 10 as well. As we look at the operations portion of the budget, there's a glaring number there from 303,000 down to 80. You all are part of that major reduction in that we have approved purchasing many new cruisers and lots of new vehicles and equipment, and that $79,582 is specifically toward the operating budget, and the reimbursables that are missing from that line item are to the tune of about $220,000, if my quick math, serves me well. So,
It's largely, those are replacement vehicles. So we carried some vehicles well past their typical useful life to stretch some budgets. And over the last couple years, we've been more aggressive in getting back up to where we should be in terms of replacement cycles. And that's reflected in lesser repair costs. So thank you for that.
Alrighty, and in the fleet maintenance division, you're going to see that we are asking for one program enhancement for vehicles, and that is a replacement pickup truck for that division, and that unit is used mostly for parts deliveries and pickups throughout greater Nashville area. Any questions regarding fleet maintenance? I'm boring y'all to sleep. I promise I'm fixing to wake you up. Or rather, Joe York's fixing to wake you up. All right, so as we move into the state street aid portion of the budget, you're going to see that in 19, we budgeted $4,194,000. In the proposed budget, we are essentially asking for the 3.8 initially, and that is a direct reflection of the local tax and the gas tax that is proposed numbers that we anticipate coming in. And that is actually a number of $3,774,163. So as we go to the next slide, this is where it gets a little more interesting. So you're going to see that there's 3 requests for program enhancements to the tune of $2,625,000. One of those requests equals $25,000 for guardrail. That is new guardrail replacement, not new guardrail installation, not replacement guardrail. The $1 million for the sidewalk handicap ramp upgrade, typically we absorb that into the major roadway resurfacing fund, if you would, and or that $3,330,000. Right now, with the current ADA standards and the mandates handed down from the Federal Highway Administration, for many of the handicap ramps that we have, or for the roads that we have scheduled to replace this upcoming year to do the resurfacing projects, we have to upgrade those handicap ramps at every one of those according to that mandate. And they are charting currently between 30 and 40% of the entire project. And that's a big number to absorb in the major resurfacing budget. You'll see that we're actually asking for another $1.6 million in the annual paving services. That is in addition to the $3,330,000. And what that number does is helps us continue to focus on a 15-year replacement cycle. Ideally, when you're talking about milling and filling of a roadway, you need to be in a 12 to 14-year cycle. Those numbers, that $5 million target for just paving, actually will help us to get into a 15-year cycle. Now, we're certainly looking at some other avenues to do some pavement preservation, and we have a study that is currently underway that'll help us look at other ways to approach our roads more than just the mill and fill that we currently use.
Did we ever upgrade the type of asphalt or paved material that we was using? Seemed like last year we had a discussion about the quality of the material that was being used. Am I thinking, am I
Well,
talking to?
I think what we discussed is the fact that the oil that is in the asphalt now is certainly not as good as the oil that was used several years ago. Therefore, when we resurface the street now, you will see in the next few months it already turning gray. And years ago, you know, the asphalt will stay black for a couple, 3 years. But the oil is cut so much these days that it's just not as good. Does it, and of course, the asphalt that we're placing these days or we're buying is still good asphalt, but as Steve mentioned, we are looking at some rejuvenating oils to put on the asphalt after it's surfaced to give us more life, maybe another 10, 15 years. And, you know, that's what we're hoping for. So that is in the works now. And
In the works, we don't have it yet, it's in the works, so we're not using
the
it today.
HA5 that we
Yeah.
brought forth here about, what, year and a half ago, we're already using in some of the older developments, but there is some new oils out there now. It's called a rejuvenator that you can place on the asphalt after it's been down a year, 2 years, within 2 to 5 years. That is supposed to give you an extra maybe 7 to 10 years each time you place that on the asphalt. And it's relatively inexpensive to do that. So possibility with this rejuvenating oil that we're looking at using in the future, give us more life and maybe cut back on some of the costs into the milling and resurfacing. So that's what we're hoping for anyway.
Thank you, Mr. York.
Mr. Chairman, may I make just a little bit of information about the major road resurfacing program? Of course, just something from a practical standpoint, the way we have to crosswalk between accounting and actually our paving season here in Tennessee is that the streets department they are knee deep in resurfacing at the end of the fiscal year. Summer months, they are really working hard. And so, of course, for accounting purposes, we have to act like our year closes and reopens for end of June and then for July 1st for our new year. So certainly if you just look at an annual fiscal year budget or fiscal year accounting report, it doesn't give you the full breadth of the work that's being done in a paving year, which I believe will begin here close of March, 1st of April, and runs really hard through October in this climate. So I wanted to just give that a little bit of a perspective between budget year and really what their paving year and the work that you see out there as you're driving around town, that it's not simply a reflection of what's being done according to our accounting books. But of course, we've also been working through a major road resurfacing program through our bond issues. In the 2017 bond issue, we had $4.1 million for major road resurfacing. And there's going to be a major work done in this 19 paving year that the streets department is going to be managing. That's pretty significant. It's going to be about a $2 million amount of work. So this is going to be a big year in big calendar year, paving year that's going to be split between fiscal years 19 and fiscal years 20. And just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one more thing, going back a slide. This current fiscal year, we increased this budget by the assumption of a couple of things. Number one, that we'd get more money from the increase from the Improve Act in the state gas tax, which we have seen. Year over year has increased yet again. The second was the use of fund balance that we had accumulated to try to get as much paving done as we could. But using fund balance, of course, is a one-time use of resources. So we knew that we wouldn't necessarily be able to repeat that in fiscal 2020. I would draw your attention to the fact that at the bottom of the slide, you see that the anticipated local contribution from the property tax is just over $1 million. Now, that's the money that's been dedicated to the street aid for a while now, plus money for sidewalk gap funding via the Invest Franklin initiative. So we will refine this budget a little bit more before you see it in May to get the latest numbers from the gas tax. And this is the last increase that we'd expect to see from that tax increase. But just to let you know sort of how that differentiates between local and state.
Any other questions regarding the state street aid? Alrighty. With that, we'll move forward to look at our 3 to 5 year vision within the department, and this is across every division. So we anticipate 3 vehicle requests, all of which are replacement vehicles, and you'll see they're scattered across the division from 2021 through 2023. As we look at the equipment requests, there are a total of 6 requests to the tune of about $502,000. Again, they vary throughout every division within the department, from maintenance to landscape, traffic to fleet. Again, all of those program enhancements are replacement vehicles, or rather equipment. As we look at the personnel requests, we have 5 requests, approximately $168,000 worth of requests there. One is an equipment operator position that we anticipate the need. One is a traffic signal tech 1, and the other 3 are reclassifications and or new positions within the fleet maintenance division. As we look to the capital request, this takes into phase 2 and 3 of the public works facility that we briefly touched on earlier in the presentation. So the equipment, vehicle and equipment shop, climatized shop, we anticipate in 2021, and then adding a clear span structure in 2022, if that design and grading was to take place in fiscal year 20. Are there any questions regarding the street maintenance, state street aid, fleet, or traffic divisions? If none, we will move forward to the stormwater division. And Mr. Paul Holzen, the Director of Engineering, has now joined us. I think he's going to present this portion of our budget. Okay, then I'll do it. I'm just making sure everybody's still awake over here. All righty. So with that, we're going to move forward. So we're going to jump right down to the purpose of the department. And the Street Stormwater Maintenance and Inspection Division exists to ensure that the citizens of Franklin receive a properly functioning, high-quality infrastructure. We take pride in our workmanship from start to finish, and our quality control inspectors expect no less from private contractors working within city rights-of-way and or within new development. In the next slide, you'll see that the org chart is essentially unchanged within this division. As we look to the personnel request, you'll recognize that we are carrying 16 full-time employees into 2020, and those numbers between 2019 and 2020 virtually stay the same. As we look at the operations budget, again, there is a difference of $6,657 difference between the 2019 operating budget and 2020. As we look at the program enhancements for both vehicle and equipment, you'll recognize that there are 3 requests totaling $323,475. One of these requests is a new unit. You've seen it before. You've purchased a couple of them, and this is the second year around for this particular unit. It is an expensive piece of equipment, and we recognize that. However, what it does for us in the fall of the year especially is just hard to even imagine, truth be known. We couldn't imagine performing that type of operations with the bulk leaf collection and or the storm drainage cleaning that time of year when the leaves begin to fall. There is a replacement excavator that we are proposing, $86,500, and that was an original piece of equipment when the stormwater division began. You'll also see that we are requesting a replacement pickup truck. As we look to our 3 to 5 year vision, we are bringing 4 program enhancements to the table, totaling approximately $488,000. 3 of those units are replacement vehicles and or equipment, and there is actually 1 new piece of equipment we'd like to add to the fleet, and that is a pull-behind water pump. During the most recent rain events, we utilized water and sewer departments equipment to help perform some emergency tasks, and we see a need in the future to purchase that same type of equipment for the street department. A couple other items in heavy hitters in that budget are a storm drain vacuum truck, which is an original piece of equipment that is different from the single man leaf unit or the curb collection unit, if you would. This is an actual truck that it's very similar rather to the sewer vacs that water and sewer uses. It is designed specifically for storm drains though. We'll be asking for a replacement pickup truck for an inspector and a street sweeper in the future. So as a maintenance division, we intend to expand in a way that keeps up with developmental growth. We want to continue to offer the best services possible to a vibrant community. We will continue to train and develop staff members that pay attention to the details, and our desire is to stand out among industry leaders for preventative maintenance measures. Any questions?
The streets, whenever they pick up the leaves, it's amazing. It really is. And that is absolutely the best way to do it, I know. But it's pretty impressive.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we just I didn't see any on the street that lasted any length of time this past fall. So, yeah, my congratulations to you too.
Thank you, sir.
It's like Steve said, when you got one truck that has 3 times the capacity of a pull-behind unit, and you have 1 employee versus 3, it means a lot. So, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts? All righty.
Thank you. Item 6.
Oh, wait, it's still, we got the engineering part of stormwater.
Okay, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do.
So the engineering side of stormwater, we manage the city's Phase 2 Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit, or MS4 permit, as we say. And really what that group does is they manage construction sites, they do development review of the plans, they do the enforcement. They also do a ton of public education and outreach. They also do stream assessments, visual stream assessments, and also sampling for illicit discharge. And that group also helps to manage our capital projects that are funded through the stormwater department. Moving on to the organizational chart, we got 6 employees that are dedicated solely to stormwater. All of our engineers, to some degree, will also touch stormwater as well throughout the department. The base budget request as it relates to personnel, it's a slight decrease of about 6.7%. Current staffing level 6, and that's what we're requesting again. Moving on to operations. Again, you'll see a decrease in operations of about 27.7%, mainly due to the fact that historically we have budgeted contractual services or engineering services out of stormwater. With the board now prioritizing a lot of the stormwater projects, that funding is now being placed with those projects as the board prioritizes those projects. Next slide is related to capital. Again, you'll see a decrease of about 19.7% in the capital side of it. We're proposing out of the stormwater fund to budget for capital-wise the 100 block Battle Avenue, which was clearly one of the board's top priority projects. The other project we're looking at is Maplewood at a cost of $700,000. And really what that comes down to is that's a 72-inch corrugated metal pipe. The entire bottom of it's gone. And our street department has asked that we move this to a capital project just because it requires a lot of external forces that we just don't have. And the way we're looking at it is the other projects would be funded through that capital plan out of the general fund or some other funding source. In summary of the capital portion of it, there's about 2.5 million of fund balance there that's going to be used to fund those two projects, leaving around 1.2 million that is essentially sufficient balance for reserves and emergency type repairs that we're required to have. And at this point in time, we're going to continue to look at the fee structure for stormwater, but we're not anticipating any major modifications this year to that fee structure. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Go ahead.
I would like to ask, whenever we went through the capital improvements recently, one of the comments at the very end of that said that the next steps would be, among other things, projects with existing obligations, and they specifically named the Corps of Engineers home raising project. And I had asked recently about what is the time frame on that, and what is the time, where the Corps of Engineers is willing to work with us. And so I'd like to hear some comments.
They haven't given us a hard and fast deadline of we have to make a decision, but we are continuing to approach that. We've made the assumption that really by the end of the summer, we need to have some decisions to give to the Corps on how we're going to fund or participate in those projects, whether it be full city participation or the property owner participation or some hybrid version of that. So as we work through the capital process, that'll move forward.
Yeah, you've approved the project. The remaining question is to what extent you want to put additional city resources in to get that match portion. So, and we've always had in our mind that by the end of the summer, early fall, we should be giving the Corps an answer. They haven't given us a deadline yet, but that's just been our mindset from what we've heard. It was identified in the capital process, so it's something that we will bring back to you as a time-sensitive decision. We've got a couple of those that have some funding opportunities or opportunity to leverage some other funds, and we want to make sure we don't lose those because we didn't make a decision timely. We want to make sure you have a chance to get an opportunity to do that.
I think that's extremely important because whenever I went back, I have some information from not just over 2 years ago, but the fall in the year before that. So I guess that would make it, 2016 perhaps. And I am very concerned. And I've actually had some people who've also asked me have sent me emails recently about what is going on about that. And this is a slightly different question. Is the amount of money that this would cost only going for the structure, to pay for the structural raising, or what about the people, are going to have to move out of their houses, obviously, for this to get done? Does it include any additional expenses like that?
Yeah, from what the Corps has said, that's all included in the costs that they have provided us, that if they had to temporarily move out, that would be part of the funding plan in those agreements.
Well, wouldn't they, if they're going to have their house raised 3, 5, 8 feet or something like that, wouldn't everyone have to move out?
Yes.
That's what but it's your understanding, because this is a question that I've been specifically asked, that would be a part of the total cost?
Correct. We've asked the Corps that question directly, and they've said that would be part of the cost.
And the numbers we're talking about include that calculation. That's all part of the budgetary number we're working from.
Okay, and so whenever we're talking about getting this done by this, you know, making a decision on this by the summer, I mean, we're talking the end of March right now. And so my question is, and as we were saying on the capital investment program, this was included in the, I think, 100 million, but it was not in the top 10 of either of these. And so my question is, when is it going to be talked about if we're having to make a decision about it in a very few months, and we're going to be working on budget
Right.
in in the middle of all this?
Yeah, they will sort of overlap in terms of your budget review and this next step. And as we said, we'll bring back some general funding strategies around the top 10 plus this group of projects that have had significant interest from the board and have some time constraints or time pressures in terms of making a decision. I don't have an exact date for you. We're trying to align that with some of the budget decisions. So I would say still, you know, in the next couple months, we'll be coming back through and pushing through some decisions, at least on projects that have a time constraint to them.
So do you think that by the time we get this budget done, then we should have some movement on the on that particular project?
I would certainly say by the time you finalize the adoption of the budget, you will have that, which is in the June timeframe, that you would make, we'd have decisions, have it teed up for you to make decisions in that timeframe.
Okay, so then we're talking within the next 3 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we may not answer every single question on capital, but we will address high priority projects and these ones that are time sensitive.
You could put this on a workshop item sometime or other for discussion, because this is one of the things that I have mentioned to Eric about, I guess, the term knocking out, because we've already agreed to participate in the program. Make sure everyone understands that. The non-agreement that we haven't agreed to is whether or not the city participates in the program and at what rate we participate. That's where we're at, not a level of understanding or a level of agreement yet. So we're in at 60% with FEMA. 65, whatever it is then, 65%. Now, the other 35%, somewhere along the way has to be discussed and brought up and recognized. The same thing on the Battle Avenue project for $1,850,000. I don't think that I think we've agreed to strongly pursue that, but I don't think we've agreed yet on that particular. We don't know if that particular price is accurate or not, because I think we are needing new appraisals on the two houses to determine whether or not that 1.85 million is a good number. So there's 2 or 3 other projects somewhere along the way that are not in this budget or related to this particular discussion. But yeah, I think we need to go ahead and get this put behind us.
Mr. Chairman, I could say that this time I did see the 2 projects listed. As I recall, in previous budgets, it's just been various projects. Mm-hmm. It did not ever name, as I recall from looking in the last 2 or 3 years, any specific projects that were, I don't want to say approved by name. It's just whatever it decided to come up. So I'm wanting to see some real specifics on this. And since we're talking about this particular, I guess this particular piece of the stormwater, you know, I have mentioned that in the last probably 5 years, the amount of money that came out of this that is just for like personnel has increased substantially from what it was maybe even 3 years ago, but certainly 5 years ago. There is a much, much larger percentage of the money that comes in that is for personnel, period. And that is also something that I think needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Paul, you have anything else?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? If no other no other questions, let's go to the item 6, Engineering and Traffic Operations Center.
Okay, so you've seen the outline before. We're going to talk a little bit about the overview of the department, org chart, and go over the different budget requests, enhancements, and then a summary. So the engineering department, basically there's 3 divisions. We have the engineering group that really looks at public and private infrastructure. We have the stormwater group, of which we just talked about. And then we have the Traffic Operations Center that manages the traffic signal timing throughout the city of Franklin. We have 5 major corridors of signal timing that we keep in sequence throughout the city. And so we retime and recount traffic at all major intersections. We try to do it every 3 years, but every 3 to 4 years we're able to get those counts and upgrade the timing as we can. And really what that comes down to is better utilizing our existing infrastructure and trying to extend its capacity. So the org chart, here's a summary. 2 assistant directors. Jonathan Marston's joining me today. He oversees our capital group and traffic operations center, and then another assistant director that oversees the stormwater division, and then all of our development engineers that support the planning department through the development review process. The base budget, there are no major changes to that base budget request. As it relates to personnel, we are asking to have 1 engineer 2 reclassified to an engineer 3. And it's just they've meeting the requirements, performing at a higher level. That engineering is just a way we can retain higher senior level engineers to help deliver capital projects. And then a senior capital project inspector is what we're asking for. And again, there's a big emphasis in us trying to deliver the capital projects that are already funded, but we're also looking at what the board may possibly fund. And right now, engineering is not only working on the stormwater projects and the roadway projects, but we're also helping to deliver the parks and recreational projects that you all prioritize. And so so the big thing with the inspector is, 1, we pay huge fees and inspection costs, allow us to do this in-house, do it better coordination. Instead of having an engineer out on site, we can utilize an inspector on site to help work with these contractors. And 2, again, we're just really trying to deliver these projects as quickly and efficiently as possible. Within Traffic Operations Division, the request is for a temporary part-time traffic engineer just to help support as we transition to our new traffic engineer and help finalize some projects that we have outstanding. And that would be just a 1-year temporary part-time engineering position. Moving on to operations, you see a slight increase there. The increase is mainly due to the internal services reimbursement account, but basically it's staying, that budget is essentially staying the same. And the same with the TALK, it's a slight decrease in budget there. Moving into capital, engineering 0. TALK, we have a slight decrease. What this funding is for the adaptive and ITS projects at about $2 million. Those funds are 80-20 match, so we'll pay 20% of it. TDOT will, and Federal Highways will reimburse us the 80% of that. We also have our signal upgrade project, which is around $250,000. We generally use that when working with streets if signal poles need to be replaced, or we need to do some type of an enhancement, or we partner with a developer on a project. We generally will pull from that funding source. We also have $150,000 for the State Route 96 upgrades, which is another grant that we've received from Federal Highways Administration. That one's 100% reimbursable, other than ADA upgrades are going to be at the cost of the city of Franklin, is the way they're headed with ADA upgrades, but that allows us to do retiming and upgrade the signal as needed. Moving into the program enhancement request, we've already talked about the engineer personnel, so I'm going to skip over that. Within TALK, we're requesting secure access control for our traffic signals cabinets and ITS cabinets. They all have network connections back. They all have connections back to our network here, so it's a security threat. Traffic signals are, when you buy a traffic signal, they give you a key to it. That key can pretty much be used on any traffic signal cabinet throughout the United States. And so this is something we've been working with our IT department to make it more secure. And I commend Jonathan and the team for coming up with this idea. But you can actually program the key to where you can give it to a contractor and it has a lifespan of where it does not work anymore. You can track who's accessing the cabinet and what key and assign them. And so this is something we've been working with our IT department on for a while. And the last one was the part-time traffic engineer, which we've already covered. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? If not, we'll move on. Item 7, budget presentation, elected officials, administration, and communication.
Invite any folks from admin or communications who want to come up and join me. I'll take you through. I'll invite folks up here if you want to join me here. We'll walk through elected officials, administration, and communications. And I'll walk you through first the elected official group, which is all of you. And as we all know, you provide the elected leadership for our city government and provide that direction. We're comprised of a mayor and 8 aldermen, 4 aldermen of which are elected through ward elections and 4 that are elected at large, and a mayor who's elected at large. And again, your responsibilities are to decide the general direction, policy, and strategic direction of the city. Also, key elements in terms of adopting resolutions, ordinances, and maintaining our municipal code and giving us the direction we need, and approving important things like budgets, which we're working on today. You see the organizational chart. Of course, our citizens are at the top of that chart. They select their representatives in our form of government, the mayor and the aldermen, and that's about as straightforward an organizational chart as you're going to see in this process. And then when we look at our numbers, it's really pretty much status quo. The only change we see is every other year we have a municipal election, and that costs us around $50,000 or so to support that component. So that is reflected in the 2020 fiscal year 2020 budget, as we have an election for mayor and at-large alderman in the fall of 19, which is part of the fiscal 20 year. So that really covers the elected officials. Let's look at city administration, which I'm a proud part of, and our role is to really work with the board and work with the city staff team to oversee the day-to-day operations of the city and work with you in implementing your vision for the city and chart the strategic direction for our community, working with you and working with our staff team. You see our organizational chart. I work obviously directly with and for all of you, and oversee a group in our administration, which includes our assistant city recorder and 3 assistant city administrators. Then we also have other folks who report to me that you see in the other organizational charts. You see departments along with that group, but this is the group that comprises our administration group. Again, our budget is fairly straightforward, pretty much status quo in terms of what you see in current year budgets and what we're carrying over. We are fully funding what we used to call an intern position, which we're now calling a management fellow position, which is a 12-month position with the city. It's someone who's come out of graduate school and is looking to pursue a career in local government, and we're excited to have that opportunity to bring emerging young professionals into our organization and have them experience what professional local government's all about, and hopefully helps enhance the opportunity for them, but also enhances our talent pipeline within our organization. We do have 2 program enhancements that we are requesting through administration. They are personnel related. The first is a full-time position that we are calling a contract administrator. And it's really related to capital investment projects. As we increase the number of projects that we're managing, we really want to put in place someone who serves as a catalyst for working through the contracts, the administration of contracts, the oversight of those elements, and that this is a position that can help do that. We think it's best positioned as part of administration because they'll work really equally with the finance side as well as the project management side of the house and help, again, provide better oversight and facilitation of implementing projects. We really want to make sure we're providing the support we need to deliver on the projects that you approve, and we think this position can help us do that. The second program enhancement is also a position. This is something actually I give Mark Hilty credit for. He's sitting back there, but this is something he brought to us as an opportunity to bring young people in the public works function, folks that may be able to work on that operational side as technicians, as facility workers, as the different positions that we have needs for, to get them exposed to the different components, working in water management, working in streets, working in parks, that they might see a career path. And so this can be a place where we especially see youth that may not be on a traditional college path, but may see an opportunity to work in these operational or technical areas that support especially our public works functions. So appreciate Mark bringing that forward, and we think we can support, not sure exactly the number, 3, 4, 5 summer youth positions, and then maybe even rotate them through a couple different functions so they get a sampling of what it's like to work for the city and what it's like to work in our frontline public works functions. So those are the two enhancements that we've brought forward from administration. And I will stop there before we move on to communications. Again, our focus is to serve you all and to serve the community and managing the day-to-day operations, facilitating strategic management and leadership of our organization, and focus on what's important in terms of serving the citizens. So I'll take any questions you have about the elected official budget or the administration budget.
Go ahead.
Can you give me an example of a project that the contract administrator would do or would over, because there's a lot of projects.
Yeah, it really would.
So give me an example of one that already passed or one that we may have in the pipeline.
Really, any of the capital projects we've been talking about, things like Franklin Road.
Right.
It would work with both the project management side and the finance side in facilitating the implementation of the contract itself, the payments, the progress and tracking the progress of the project overall, and really help support our project managers and support administration in our oversight of projects. So it's a senior position designed to help us really better manage projects, because our engineering folks are very tied into specific, and we want them to be very tied into specific what's going on out on the job site and the progress we're making and troubleshooting those issues. And sometimes you got to connect those to what's happening in the administrative side, be it finance and payments and different contract compliance issues, and just sort of helping troubleshoot those areas and support our project management function overall.
Would the Hillsborough Road project would have been a good example, because I got several calls from folks along that stretch because there was citizens with questions and concerns. So will this individual be dealing with the individual property owners?
Well, I think you still may see project managers doing that work because they're in the field if you are working on it.
Yeah.
But this helps support those folks so they can be doing more work out directly on the construction site, or working with our contractors to deal with issues and make progress there, while somebody's helping them deal with a contract compliance issue or a payment issue, or working with a grant or whatever that might be. So it really helps provide some additional capability on our team.
So you want to go into it as a full-time rather than a pilot program? We think we need it that badly? That
We think we need that with the magnitude
rather
of...
than doing a pilot year or something? Okay.
Yeah, there's just so many projects that we're managing that providing some additional capacity in this function, we think will go a long way. You know, if this works well, we may come back and say we need another position like this, depending on the number of projects, because we're putting a lot of projects through our pipeline, and we want to make sure that we're able to administer it in a way that delivers projects effectively. And we think we need this capacity to do that better than we've been. Our folks work hard and they do a really good job, but we've also got a lot of things we are juggling, and having this type of support and assistance in the project management area, we think will really help us better deliver projects.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes.
Whenever engineering was talking, they mentioned something about having someone that kind of would be on site or something like that. I know that over the years, we have paid a fair amount of money to outside engineering companies to be on site whenever something was happening. Is that was mentioned earlier today in talking in engineering, is that possibly to handle some of the things that we had to pay fairly expensive contracts with?
Yeah, you're always going to need someone from the engineering side, either our staff or a consultant who worked on it, to connect design issues to what's going on in the actual construction or delivery of the project. So we're always going to have the need for that presence. And, you know, we look at where it makes sense for us to do it and where it makes sense to have outside resources help us do it. And so that's still going to be something we look at. I think, you know, we hope that this helps better free up some of our engineering staff to deal more just directly with project issues. I don't know that it will ever fully relieve us of the need to have the consulting piece there, especially on complicated projects where they were very intimately involved in designing projects, and having them still there serves a very valuable purpose for us. So I don't know that it'll really relieve us of that, but it should help better support our project delivery overall.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Melissa, you're up.
Get to finally touch the button. Thank you for having me here today. We're here to present the budget, and I appreciate you listening to our budget information. Here's the outline. We'll be doing pretty much what all the other departments did. The purpose of the department, the org chart, the base budget request, and the program enhancements, and the summary. And the Communications Division was created in December 2008. That happens to be when I came on board. And we have a great team that is working in our division right now. We're doing a lot of fun, great creative projects. The division also handles all the media relations for the city and manages the City Government Access Channel, Franklin TV, and all social media. That's our org chart. We have a communications manager, a social and digital media producer, a cable TV production operations supervisor, a public outreach specialist, and a cable TV production assistant part-time. And that's our base budget request for personnel. No real changes there, 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. And then if you look at the operations request, I'm sorry, the base budget operations request, we do have an increase there, and that is mainly due that we put the line item of the tree lighting in our budget this year. That has really grown over the years, as you have, mostly all of you have experienced. And last year, we were able to raise the amount of money that the production actually costs. We had a lot of donations, and the Spring Tree Media Group would donate their services. Last year, we were able to pay for everything, and that's about $20,000.
So the reason that's there is we're going to have a matching revenue line item. So in the past, we were sort of offsetting it with what we received in sponsorship support. So we're going to clearly account for the full cost of the event, but you also see an offsetting revenue. So while the magnitude of the event has increased, Melissa and the communication team have been able to get greater community support. So really, it's not having a direct budget impact. It's really we have other resources that help us fund the event. So you're just seeing it accounted for a little differently in this proposed budget.
We were able to raise $20,000 last year about that from Middle Tennessee Electric, Williamson Medical Center, Mars Pilgrimage, and the Rotaries donated their time as well. And we're hoping to do that again this year. And then if you look at some of the bullet points there, it just kind of shows you a few little things that we've been able to do with the base budget request. We've increased Instagram followers to more than 10,000 now. We updated the city website recently. We've worked with Brentwood and UT on benchmarking initiative video. That was Michael Walters Young was part of that project. We produced the first More with the Mayor, Vets Parade, Christmas Parade, and Tree Lighting Event live on the square and streamed that. We created a recruitment video for Human Resources and also for Franklin Fire. Increased sponsorships for the Christmas tree lighting, worked to establish the Public Arts Commission that Monique's very involved in, assisted the Franklin locals. You've seen them on the streets helping people find good places to eat for lunch and visit. And we've processed approximately 48 events in the city. And then we've also, how many Citizens Government Academy? We're going to add that in.
Is it in there? We probably had close to 500 in the 16 years that we've done it.
And about 270 people? Or how many?
Almost 500 graduates.
500 graduates. That's, and how many years?
16 years.
16 years. Okay, thanks. All right, and we just have a couple program enhancements. And that's, both of them have to do with meeting our ADA requirements. The first one is consultant services, and that is the closed captioning. Closed captioning is required now, and we've been doing that manually. Our part-timer has been going over all the meetings, typing in everything everyone says, and now we have a service that we can use. It's about $1 per minute. We're not able to send out everything, but this will help us to free up some time for our staff to work on other projects. And the second one is a software and a company called Site Improve, and they will help our website stay ADA compliant. When we redesigned the website, we made sure that everything was ADA compliant when it first went in, but we have web liaisons from every department that help to add information or take information out, and in order to keep that ADA compliant, they need to put it in a certain manner to make sure that those with disabilities can read the website or listen to the website. And this website, the Site Improve, will help us to stay compliant and will kind of read out the website, tell us what's not working, what is working, and then tell us where we can improve our site. It also provides the heat mapping. Remember when I did a presentation a few months ago on the new website, and it showed the heat mapping, and it shows where people click, what they're looking for, what's their biggest search on the website. And so it will allow us to have a lot of insight into how our website's used, as well as the ADA compliant factor, and spellings and misspellings, and when pictures aren't quite right and that kind of thing. So it'll help out a lot of the departments and us overseeing the whole website as a whole.
I have a question. Whenever I looked over at the very last thing, you know, it told about like the search engine optimization. I remember years ago, we could key in something and it would pull up where we had it on a particular meeting. I mean, you know, the information about it, at least the, you know, the little thing like this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do that anymore. I've tried it, not just since we've got the brand new one, but even in the one before that, because until a certain time, really we were able to go back and look 10 years, you know, to see when something did come up for a vote or something like that. Is this search engine going to enable us to do anything like that?
Well, I think that they're referring to a different type of search engine
I wondered about
optimization,
that.
and that's when people Google for Franklin, Tennessee, that our website will come up higher in the search engine results. I think what you're referring to, and probably need an internet expert on that, but I think probably years ago, all of that was on one server and one, that's before we split out and got Granicus, or we're moving to the new software before we have Vision. So right now we have Vision Internet that has a lot of the content from the departments, but we have another software company that handles the agendas and the information that's put in there. So there's
But
two different.
where can you search on there for anything? I have been unable to in the last few years.
There is a search engine that will go through the content of the website, and there's a search bar up at the top of the website.
Right, that's what I tried, and
Yeah, we agree it does not work as well as it did previously, and that's one of the things we're looking at as we look at alternatives with the software program that we use for agenda management now, and what else we may look at, because we're not pleased with the way it functions with searchability in particular. So that's one of the deficiency in the current program. It does a lot of things well, but it does not do that well. And so that's one of the things we're looking to improve as we move forward.
And he's referring to the agenda software.
Agenda software, yeah.
You can go to the agenda software and do a search to look at what's on the agenda.
Absolutely, but you have to look on a particular day. In other words, it will not tell you whether it showed up a year ago or whether it showed up a month ago or 3 years ago.
And I
It
think
does not
that's
show
why
that at
they're,
all.
why they're moving to a new software, because they're not happy with that.
It has some of that search engine capability deeper into the system, like when we're producing it, we can find things better, but the public side of that is not nearly as good. And so that's exactly what we're trying to address.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly just the public. You do see what I mean? And I have really not been able to find things the way I used to. And I remember being able to find things before. But you're hoping that this is going to.
That's one of the issues we're trying to address.
Thank you.
I just pulled it up, if I could say something. I went to the meetings and clicked on the Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings, then clicked on the agenda, and each agenda item is then listed, and if you go out to the far right, it says video.
Absolutely, but I mean, you have to know what meeting to click on. In other words, if you're just looking to see whenever I'm trying to even think of something that I've looked for, that might have been a year ago or 2 years ago, it does not do that at all. Yeah, but yes, good point. That the other thing, and you can see the video for that particular thing, can't you? Yes, that's very good.
And once we get the new agenda software, we'll learn how that coordinates with the Vision Internet and try to get those two together with their search engines, if we can.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment really, is that I see where you all are processing approximately 48 events. I mean, that could be like 3 or 4 a month. That is a lot of work there. And you're assisting the locals, so you're really doing a lot. We, as a city, are doing a lot of things for our local community and helping them expose their events. A lot of nonprofit work you all do. I know your TV staff go out to different entities in the community and make video for them. And that's at no cost, right? I mean, that's just public goodness, right? Good public relations when you go out to a nonprofit that may be holding an event and you do some type of video for them.
Yes, a lot of times we're involved in those meetings, or we're speaking at those meetings, and we need programming for Franklin TV, and it has to do with our community, so we feel it's beneficial to the public. Yeah. And then I also gave you this little snapshot of our social media statistics for 2018, and as you can see, we've pretty much increased in Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Last year in Twitter, we had over 1 million impressions, and that means we touched about over 1 million Twitter screens on their phones, or I guess that's mainly where people look at Twitter on their phones. And then on your meeting views, 60,000 meeting views on Facebook. That's where people are watching them. and 4,307 on YouTube, and we're streaming those live. And then you can also see the highest, the top videos that have been seen on Facebook and Instagram, and the tree lighting was a big event, very Instagrammable and Facebook postable.
So which one is people viewing our meetings by television?
It's down here on this right here.
Okay, so it has
And on Facebook, 60,000 video views, and we reached 188,000 people. And then on YouTube, it's 4,307. And then the reach means that they may not have viewed the videos, but they saw it on their screen and they didn't actually click to view, but they know that we're there.
Now, live TV, I mean, at 3 o'clock in the evening, are people actually watching channel?
Well, we don't have a way to measure. We don't have a way to measure the
Okay,
Franklin
all
TV,
right, I'm just
but we
wondering if
can measure on
if we were
Facebook
the
and
top
YouTube.
billing here for.
However, I have definitely have people who tell me that they watch.
And a
Yes.
lot of people are commenting on Facebook too, and we try to answer those questions, and if they have a comment, we try to forward that to city leaders and aldermen. And then this is just a look at our website and how many page views we've had. This is just March to March, 2018 to March 2019. And you can look at, a lot of people are paying attention to what city government's doing. And that's all I have.
Let's go to item 8, financial report. Mr. Lowe, you're up.
Good afternoon. Last month, when we met, we did not have the local sales tax from December sales. We now have that, and what it turned out to be was slightly less than last year's number. But if you look at the year-to-date, the city is actually still at 4.5% over last year, and after having a strong January sales tax, we're actually year-to-date after January of 4.8%.
We have the numbers?
Yes, ma'am.
That are not in here.
We just received those last week, and I believe our city administrator will be sending that information out very, very shortly. But we're up 4.8%. We had a very strong January. We did check with our colleagues around the state just to get a flavor of December, as well as certainly everyone's read stories about December sales as a nation. But our experience was similar to many other cities in Tennessee for December. A couple cities that we surveyed, or wasn't a statistical survey, but who we checked with, were up a little bit. I didn't see anything more than 3%. And there were some that were down significantly, where we were essentially flat. So the December story wasn't, on its own for that month, something that we were, strengthened by. But certainly, we had a strong November, and we had a strong January. We've had conversation as staff. We've had 2 strong Januaries in a row, year over year. Last January was up significantly of the year before. We had another strong January. So we do have a little bit of a suspicion as staff that perhaps there can be some differences in reporting coming from, of course, all of our numbers come from the state. There could be perhaps some reporting that is now in January that is for the season, perhaps, of that holiday spending season. Also, we do have, staff, we talk about whether people's behavior has changed a little bit. Maybe grandma gives you money for Christmas, and while you're off from work or school, you go out and spend it around the first week of January. Or gift cards go out. Grandma gives gift cards, and people go out and spend those as well. So there could be some behavior as well as reporting. It can be some explanation, but we were glad to see that January sales were strong.
So, but I noticed though that in December, the ones that would really be for December, that's the ones that we have in here. It says the
Yes,
state
ma'am.
of Tennessee was up 4.2%, and we were down.
We were
0.9%.
slightly down. So,
But anyway,
Mhm.
you're saying that the most recent one that we will get information about was up. That's good. Then that's definitely good.
Well, I think year-to-date, you know, I know we judge the months to get to year-to-date, but year-to-date to me, it's much more important number than
Yes.
the monthly.
December is still the largest month,
Right.
but in January and February are historically lower months, but we are seeing January pick up as an important month throughout the year, and there may be some factor of people's behavior a little bit is changed.
But we're still comparing month to month, month to last year's month. And so even with what you're saying, we could still be up.
And we are.
The second highlight for this report is that it includes the property tax billings. And like last year, the amount that's being billed is over 20 million. And with the way the budget is designed, that amount is split between the general fund, the street aid fund, and the debt service fund, as well as a portion that goes to the TIF district, which that amount is now over $2 million of that 20 million. The third item is we're still looking, knowing that we're comparing to a record year. And when we do that, we looked at last year where we stood, and at this point, we had a $6 million surplus. If we look this year, it's lower, but it's still a surplus of 4.8 million. And if we look at development fees, it's what we maybe have seen over the past few months. The amounts are consistent with budget, but they are less than what we had seen in the prior year. One thing we did want to point out is if you look at the transit fund, it's actually only gotten a fraction of the budgeted transit revenue in here at mid-year. So we've actually spoken with transit. They're aware of that, and they're working to get caught back up. But I knew that if you looked at that, I just knew that was something that we picked up on when we put together the report.
And I want to add to what Mike just mentioned. Last year we had a similar conversation with this committee about the transit fund. Specifically, we had that they had actually requested the city money early in the year, and their grant money had not come in. They did certainly have a very difficult year staff-wise last fiscal year, and we did our closing budget amendment. We asked the board to approve additional budget authorization in case their grant monies did not come in time to record those in the last fiscal year. And they did receive some grant funding after the fiscal year had closed during the closeout period, so we didn't have to use as much of that additional authorization as we had asked for. But Mike did note that we have spoken as staff to the transit folks this year because their grant money appears to be late as well. And so we are offering our assistance, and we're just keeping you updated through purposes of this quarterly report. We've updated Eric as well of that situation. So we do believe they've requested grant funding, but it may not have been as early in the fiscal year because it does, of course, take time for the granting agencies to move through that. So we'll be keeping you updated, and certainly we'll be keeping Eric updated as well. That we'll be monitoring that for the rest of the fiscal year.
And the last highlight I have is that Margaret Wilson in the finance department wrote the quarterly report this quarter, and it's probably the first time someone else other than myself has written it in several years. So I wanted to thank her for that. And the one thing that she did is we knew that we needed to look at the capital projects fund. And so what we did is we split it into the three parts, because what we wanted to do is go back and possibly address the remaining deficit in the multi-purpose, general purpose part of that fund. So we'll be working with Michael and budget to come up with what that composition is, what portion might be road impact versus what portion may be general fund. So we feel like that's what we were trying to do with this breakout, as well as to let you see what we are left with on the 2017 bonds, over 8 million left to be spent, and the 2019 bond reimbursables, which we've spent about 10,000, but in essence, that's an amount that will be reimbursed once those bonds are issued.
And just to give you a little bit of further explanation, I certainly also want to thank Margaret and the accounting staff. Mike has provided a wonderful leadership and collaboration. We've been looking at the capital project fund in this light as accounting people and finance people, but to have a report in this way, we believe will be helpful to Eric as well as board members to look at the capital project fund in a similar light how we look at this in accounting. We have the part of the general purpose, the part of the capital project fund that is funded with general as a pay-as-you-go type function with either capital funds that are targeted, such as road impact fees or other or facilities tax, as well as general taxes that are transferred over from the general fund. And then we also, of course, segregate out bond proceeds. And I will mention on the 2009 bond proceeds, while we have the accounting structure set up for our reimbursement, and you see for the first time those expenses recorded here, we have received many of the police vehicles that we talked about for the 2019 bond issue. That's part of the 2019 budget. Those have come in the last couple of months, those vehicles, and we have paid those bills and expensed that to this fund. So we certainly have now more than $10,000 of expense. The other large, truly long-term project, the cornerstone project of the 19 bond issue, is Franklin Road. And while we started that project in the 17 bond issue, it's primarily the 19 bonds will be funding the Franklin Road project, and we are recording those expenses that have occurred this calendar year as well, that you don't see in a quarterly report. But that's the other that's the cornerstone project, over $15 million to the Franklin Road project. So we are now recording those to this new fund 312 as well. But going forward, this will be the format that you'll see our capital project fund reported.
Mr. Chairman, that was the last highlight I had from the quarterly reports.
Any questions from the committee?
I guess my one question would be, it looks like the claims on the employee benefits much higher, so maybe a few bigger medical claims, and maybe the comment too would be, I guess, looking at all the individual budgets that we looked through today, and I know this is new, the health savings accounts, it looks like a very, very slow adoption process. Yeah, I would maybe encourage us to have more education, especially like streets department. I think there was one person, and I would think of all the people that might benefit the most would be young, healthy males that never go to the doctor, might benefit from those health savings accounts even more, and just to get all the employees to be good consumers of their insurance dollars. I could see that continuing to grow and maybe reducing some of those employee benefit costs.
And I'll give just an overview. Of course, we are self-insured for our employee medical expenses. So while we do have a budget for the different classification, the different tiers of our employee health benefits, whether you're a single employee plus a spouse, employee plus children, or employee plus family, certainly that's a budget based on history as well as the recommendation from our HR department and their consultant on what they see as trends in increases in medical costs. So last year we actually had low claims. We had when you look at our claims over the year before, we had what we consider a good year, and that was part of the reason why we did not use all the budget last year, was that we did have a low year in claims. This year may be more of an average based on trends, because while we are seeing more expense this year than we did last year in a low year. I'll give also just the commentary. When I worked at a large county government that had 4,000 to 5,000 employees a number of years ago, and instituted the health savings account. And it took a little time for employees who, especially maybe employees who have never been offered that type of program before. Private sector employees have had it for a long time, but the whole concept of a health savings account is new for many public sector workers. And it took some time. It almost took a little bit of time for people to have a coworker who tried it and said, "Oh, that's a pretty good deal." And our HR department did education and did tours to the departments this year, but it will be a multi-year process of education and becoming familiar to probably see that that number increase. And Eric participated in many of those conversations, and I think it was generally well received to be an option, as well as the tiers were well received to be options that you now could choose different types of more traditional benefits, but in tiers rather than just single and family. So,
yeah, your point's an excellent one. It is something we need to make sure people are aware of because it can really help stretch their healthcare dollars, and it's a nice benefit. And so it's depending on who you are and what your needs are for you or your family. And we have introduced the year prior an additional tier that was an employee plus one. So we are trying to provide more options and things that align better with what specific needs people might have. And this isn't one of them. It is new. HR has been working hard to make sure folks learn about it and what's different about it. We expected there to be a little bit of lag because if you're a flexible spending account user, you need to phase that out before you can go into the other world. And so that might be a little bit of a lag with some folks, but your point's very well taken. We need to make sure we continue to educate folks because it's a really good option for a lot of our employees. So.
I would also add that in 3 of the 4 departments where we do have personnel charge, 3 of the 4 funds that we have personnel charged to, those are still performing under what we anticipated with budgeting. This was the conversion year, if you will, going from adding the HSAs, but also going from 2 to 4 tiers. We were very conservative in the amount that we budgeted, and so we're still kind of working through that. You see that in the 2020 budgets. Benefit numbers in the 2020 departmental budgets are kind of all over the board, and because some are up, some are down, some are very, very close to breaking even, and that's because we're taking into account everyone going to not just an individual and a family, but an individual and a +1 and a plus child, and so it's going to take a couple of years to kind of see that, percolate through budgeting.
Any other questions or comments? Then let's go to item 9, monthly reports for March.
Mr. Chairman, on this report, I may just have one highlight. If you look at the conference center profit year to date, we started out with a loss, but since then, we've actually had 6 profits, and the net profit for the year is $228,000 as of the end of January.
Any questions or comments?
The facilities taxes and the others, then I think the building permits are kind of down, but you never know. I mean, that could jump depending on something coming in, I guess.
Any other questions or comments on monthly reports? Any other business?
Let me touch on 2 things. One, our next meeting is April 11th at 1 o'clock, so we don't have a lot of time between department presentations. So we'll be polishing everything off next time. All the departments you haven't seen, you will see then, and we'll also give you some overview on some of the non-general fund funds and their status and some key parts there. So that is our traditional catch-all meeting. So get ready for that one. The other thing is not related to budget and finance, but related to a city meeting later this week. I just want to make sure you know, on Thursday, we have a number of meetings overlapping. We have our Capital Investment Committee at 4, and then we have the Joint Planning Commission, Board of Mayor and Alderman Conceptual Workshop at 5, and that's a very full agenda. We had also planned a public meeting or hearing opportunity related to our consolidated plan, which is our community development block grant program. It's a requirement to have a public, just public access and opportunity for people to give us input. That was also scheduled for Thursday. What we've done with that is we've created a window from 4 to 6 that public can come in and give us feedback and have an opportunity to look at what's proposed. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty consistent with what we've had the last several years in that program, but that is part of our public process. So if you haven't gotten something from us, you will get something again to kind of address that. We did publicize that, but realized that we're straddling a couple meetings, so we widened the window for public to come in and see us about the consolidated plan, which is our community development block grant, essentially our overview program budget.
Do you want to cover the locations?
I think the consolidated plan, is that in the community or building and neighborhood services conference room? So that building neighborhood services, the glass wall conference room that you see down the hall between here and the training room, that's where the consolidated plan meeting will be. Of course, capital investment will be in this room, in this setup, and the conceptual workshop will be down in the training room.
Can I ask a question? Did I see that our meeting tomorrow starts at 4 o'clock?
It's on. It's normal
Thank you.
time, 5 o'clock.
Thank you so much for telling me that. I
Good thing I
thought.
would have showed up at 4.
I would.
No,
Okay,
have you?
well,
Okay.
we'll make a note to all of us that may have already picked up stuff. I don't either, but I'm glad to hear that it's at 5.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Regular meeting time for Board of Mayor and Alderman and work
I
session.
thought the mayor did that so we could get through for the 7 o'clock meeting.
We could have used that on recent meetings, that's for sure.
I was just trying to slip one by you.
Any other questions as far as other business? Last item on the agenda is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion. Proper motion second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.